welcome back to It's Time to Talk for our second episode, all on career advice. Today I'm joined by It's Time trustee David and two amazing guests, Leah and Dan, who we'll go on to introduce in just a minute. But we just thought we would kind of touch base with the aim of what this mini-series is, and it's to kind of discuss different topics that can affect you after losing a parent. Some topics might be a little bit more specific. This one's a little bit more general, but it's also to help educate through inviting guests to share their knowledge or their personal experience on a certain topic. So so without further ado, so I'm Libby. I'm the marketing operations executive for It's Time, and I've been working here for 6 months now and absolutely loving it. And I lost my dad when I was 14, so I was just about to start my GCSEs. So very kind of relevant to, I guess, what we're going to talk about today, being in the education system and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that will be just my personal experience. And I definitely could have done with, I think, some extra support and guidance and whatnot. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys are able to share with us today. I'll pass on to David. David?
Oh, thanks, Libby. Good, right? So my name's David Fagan, trustee of It's Time charity. I lost my father when I was just turned 19. I was at Loughborough University going into my second year. So it was right in the midst of my later education. My role at It's Time is focused on corporate partnerships and fundraising. Thank you for both joining us today. Today is, as Libby said, around education, career advice, etc. So again, as Libby said, got two fantastic individuals in this space joining us, and yeah, looking forward to showing everybody what you guys do.
Definitely, yeah. So just to kind of touch on what it is and why we're doing this topic today before Leah and Dan go on to introduce themselves. So obviously, as David just said, losing a parent within an education or whilst you're in the education system can have a huge impact on, your focus, your ability to engage, and there can be a whole kind of plethora of different avenues that can then create different obstacles that can really then affect your career and the likelihood that you can, kind of have a kickstart to certain things. So that's why any organisation who's kind of supporting particularly young people who might find themselves in certain disadvantaged situations, it's really exciting to chat and learn more about. So so do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, me first.
You first.
Wow. Thanks, Libby. Thanks, David. I'm Leah. I am the director of the Early Careers Foundation, which is a UK charity, fully certified, and we work within the Early Careers group that Dan founded, and he'll tell you a little bit about. My whole background professionally is in the non-profit space, so I've worked in youth development, supporting young people in different capacities throughout my whole career, which I really stumbled into. I think I now find it funny positioning myself as, careers advice or offering guidance, imparting wisdom, because I had no set plan. Just found myself working in the charity space, and I think falling in love with kind of purpose-driven work and helping young people who need that, which is why we connected so much with It's Time. I am fortunate in that I've never lost a parent, but I have supported a lot of friends who have gone through that themselves. It's obviously not comparable, but I can completely understand the ramifications that has on so many aspects of your life, and thinking about a career and a job, really, why would you want to do that when you've had that experience? So excited to be here today and hopefully talk a bit about what we do, why we do it, and any potential wisdom we could maybe impart.
I'm sure there'll be buckets.
Don't set your expectations too high. I'm actually relatively similar. It's funny, my entire life is devoted to helping organizations hire talented young people and helping young people get great jobs. It's what I've done since I was 18 years old. I've actually never had a job interview, which is kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm Dan. similar to Leah, I've never gone through the experience of losing a parent, but did have quite an interesting comparison. My dad lost his dad when he was 18. And so and we spoke about that a lot as I was growing up, and having a very stark comparison between the sort of very, stable, middle class, consistent upbringing I had compared to my dad. He had to drop out of school to look after his family, become a painter decorator, and so on. So yeah, although I've not had the personal experience, I often think it can be helpful at times to come at an issue from a different angle. Similar to the social mobility aspect I look at, I've never experienced social mobility. I was, grew up in a nice house in North London and always had a nice life, but have always cared about the issue. And I think coming at it from a position of sort of relative privilege actually gives you sometimes some quite unique perspective. Yeah, I'm 26, so I founded the Early Careers Company and the Early Careers Foundation at the start of last year, so January 4th, 21. As of right now, I'm the CEO of the company and a trustee of the foundation. I was the chair, but Leah demoted me. No, she didn't really, I couldn't be the chair. So I grew up in North London. I come from like a really left-wing family. I've always been basically cared about two things, like socialism and making the world a better place, and like capitalism and businesses and money and cars and nice holidays and stuff like that. So I suppose it was kind of always in my destiny to have a company and a charity. When I was 18, I'd accepted an offer to go and study neuroscience at uni. I took a gap year because I wasn't sure I was happy with the choice I made university-wise. And then, in the end, didn't ever go. I got a job at a really small startup, and in the end, stayed there for 6.5 years and left in the first lockdown. So July 2020, took 6 months off, and then founded the company and the charity at the start of last year. So that's me.
Thank you so much. I was hoping you were going to say that, Dan. So thank you for sharing that. But also, what I know you both said in terms of personal experience of losing a parent, neither of you have. But to kind of, as you said, Leah, plenty of friends who maybe have. Dan, similar with you, your dad lost a parent at a young age, and I think it kind of goes back to, which is why we even exist, and why I think particularly the trustees who set it up were kind of I guess a bit confused as to why something didn't already exist, because around 15% of young people in the UK 16 to 30 have lost a parent, so it's not as uncommon as we think. Yeah, or both. Yeah,
1 in 6, 1 in 7.
Yeah, so it's a lot more kind of common than we think. So yeah. So anyway, so I guess we could start to kind of take us back to the beginning then, Dan, Leah, whoever feels comfortable to kind of take the lead. But could you tell us, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit just then, but why was it that you set up the Early Careers Company and the Early Careers Foundation?
I guess I'll let Dan take this one, considering he is the founder. But
I've forgotten. No, I'm kidding. I mean, slightly different reasons. I'll maybe explain why each of those things, and then kind of how I thought it makes sense to connect. And so the company was set up because I basically think early careers can be done a lot better. There are thousands of companies in the UK and around the world that are committed to helping organizations attract, assess, hire, retain, and so on young people. Very, very few of them are set up with young people's interests at heart. They're almost entirely like very commission-driven, sales-focused sort of recruitment companies. I spent a lot of time working in a company, I've got nothing bad to say about them, but I thought things could be done slightly differently. So when I set the business up, I kind of had two goals. So half of the company is focused on helping organizations improve the infrastructure around emerging talent, especially when it comes to diversity, when it comes to people from different kind of income or wealth backgrounds, when it comes to people from different cultures and religions. Just hiring them doesn't solve the problem. You can hire lots of people from, from challenging home lives, but if you don't have the right infrastructure, training, support, guidance, or even take it back a step, right? You don't have the right kind of frameworks against which to assess them. The companies make a massive effort to bring talented people in from a range of backgrounds, but often don't adjust who they're looking for, how they assess them, how they communicate and attract them, how they promote and support and advise and progress and develop them. So the idea was to develop a company that can kind of deliver an end-to-end service. So we help companies design assessment processes, and I'll come on to what we do a bit later. But the idea was to fix that issue around early careers, diversity, and young people making a go of it in the commercial world from a kind of corporate or commercial level. I mentioned in my introduction, kind of, I think of myself as a bit like a capitalist and a socialist. Our operations manager, Ursula, lets me know regularly whenever I say that it's impossible, because apparently that's both monetary theory. But the idea is, like, I like nice things, and I believe people should have the right to choose how to live their own lives. And if people want fast cars and big houses and first class plane tickets, like, props to you for that, no worries. But I also think that we need to operate. I mean, I use the plane thing as an example, that there's nothing wrong with having business class, first class, and economy, but we need to create the mechanisms to allow people to move between the classes based on their talent and effort. Having first class is wrong, and people from economy will never be able to make it into one of those seats. So, the idea became pretty obvious to me, and because being in early careers puts you in quite a privileged position to impact these things. The inspiration for the foundation actually came from someone I knew when I was young. Guy called James. He was a young guy from a council estate near where I grew up. He was always very witty and very sharp, clearly very bright, but had quite a challenging home life. His mum worked nights as a cleaner. His dad passed away when he was young. There you go. His dad passed away when he was young, and his mum worked nights as a cleaner. And he had four little sisters to look after. Ended up not doing very well at school, went to a kind of, bottom tier university. I think didn't do very well, didn't choose a very rigorous degree. Ended up just working in shops, which is nothing wrong with that. But, it was clear that his kind of ambitions and capabilities exceeded that, but he had no sort of mechanisms to make it into the area he wanted to be in. Anyway, he was interviewing for a job at, the big Waitrose in Canary Wharf. If you ever go there, there's a big one, it's really good. Yeah. He was interviewing there, and he was on the phone to his mum in the Starbucks, and someone came up to him and said, I can hear you doing an interview, but I'm actually a recruiter. Do you want to sit down? I'll help you with your prep. I've got half an hour of my lunch. Turns out she worked at a massive investment bank, and he ended up getting a job at JP Morgan on the grad scheme. And I caught up with him for a socially distanced, kind of lukewarm Stella in the park during lockdown, and excuse my language in advance, it's a quote, so I have to swear. He said, I said to him, I was like, that's amazing. Do you ever find like your background still holds you back? And he said, no, I've worked at JP Morgan for 3 years. No one gives a fuck what I did before. And I realized, well, I knew already, but it really hammered home what a massive like leveler getting a good first job can be. What a huge like fork in the road in people's lives make it that first entrance into the business world is. And so I think that if you're going to really try to tackle social mobility, which, by the way, if you care about capitalism and helping people, if you care about wealth creation and making the world a better place, is a great intersection between the two, because, jobs and careers is where, the commercial world meets real people and real people's lives. So I thought social mobility charity and early careers company, so we can kind of fix the same issue from different angles.
Yeah, that was really good.
So,
I was talking that as I was going through, I was like, I'm explaining this quite well.
You explained that really well.
That was good.
I can write that down and say it again. Like sales pitch.
No, that was good. Thanks for that, Dan. I think it kindly leads into our next question, which is about ECC and ECF. So, and actually, I think a question you could both answer quite well. So, can you give us a good breakdown of ECC and ECF? Individually, and then also, I guess, how the foundation kind of complements the ECF Foundation complements the work that you do with ECC, the early careers.
Yeah, and I would argue also how the early careers company complements the foundation.
Yeah, vice versa.
It's a very
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a very interactive relationship. We sit in the same office. We are very much a kind of group. It's not just the company.
We like the same type of wine.
We like the same type of wine. It's very important. But it's not just I think often people are like, well, it's the company and the profit driven, and then like the fluffy charity on the side, and it's just not like that at all. Like, I've worked in the charity space for a good while now, and I think part of the reason why I was somewhat disillusioned by it is that often in the charity space there is just a focus on service delivery, but if there's a need for those services, then what's the reason behind it? And often the nonprofit space can fall a little bit short, not across the board, but occasionally, where you're so wrapped up in delivering those services that unless you zoom out and actually look at what the underlying problem is and how we can work to fix that, then you're still going to fall short. And that was...
Can I just add something to that? I still think it's not that different, right? It's funny. I talked to people about when I first started all this, like wanting the company and the foundation to share like a corporate culture. It's a very deliberate thing that we don't want separate offices, separate income and funding streams. We don't want like really separated teams. We have a lot of involvement of all of them. So there's now 38 people globally in the company, and all of them, as long as they've been here 3 months, are involved quite heavily. They're mentors, they're involved with the foundation, some of them provide strategic advice and so on. And the reason is that, like, of course you have a different aim, right? A company's aim and the outcome of the company being high performance and doing well is you grow faster and make more money. But like, arguably the outcome of a foundation or a charity doing well and being high performance is more important. The higher performance the charity is and the better the charity does, the more young people's lives we change. Like, that's a, you know, pretty important thing to consider, although it is obviously less trackable, less tangible month on month. So I think sometimes, in my experience, I sit on a few charity boards, things can sometimes get a bit lost. And of course, so much time is spent fundraising and not enough time spent doing the actual thing you're supposed to be doing. So we wanted to kind of remove those challenges and focus on that.
Massively. Yeah, which is what kind of attracted me to the job. Dan stole me away.
A message on New Year's Eve at 7 p.m.
Messaged me on LinkedIn on New Year's Eve. Yeah. And I replied, which shows how much
you replied late, you replied like 8:45, so that's the worrying thing.
That is worrying.
Yeah.
Because I could really see, you know, the way that the two interact so that we can look to helping as many young people as we can, both on a company and foundation level, and really make a dent in changing how social mobility is going in the UK, which currently is just downhill. Like, if you are from a low income background, the reality is that social mobility now in the UK is much harder than it was back in our parents' days.
Not pointing any fingers, but I wonder why.
Which is where, you know, I came in, because I was so excited about that. And having a foundation, you know, obviously it's very grassroots. We are working with young people one at a time, providing support to give them the right access to education, knowledge, guidance, and financial aid to get into a great first job, at which point we can somewhat, you know, hand them over into the company where they can then go in and get that support to find a great job. But I think
kind of long-term dream, right, is that it's a proper long-term life cycle. Yeah. Like, this actually wasn't the dream when I set it up, to be honest with you. It's just like, actually makes a lot of sense. So the idea is that, and Leah will go on, I'm sure, in a second to talk about the kind of 3 key things and the 3 key hurdles that the charity exists to help young people overcome. But the idea is we help them learn about the commercial world, then build confidence and skills, then gain financial support you need, and the company helps them get a job and progress and support and develop. Then they become mentors and they become clients and so on. So hopefully with this kind of entire journey, with some parts of it from a commercial standpoint monetized to fund the non-monetized parts.
Yeah, but in order to do,
just to interject there, because of what you were both saying, is I think the whole idea of kind of it being the foundation being kind of like, you know, the initial support and the kind of the basis of, you know, guidance, everything, and then, you know, you can then go on to the careers company and everything, and the more of like the lifelong trajectory of what that could offer. When a young person has come from a difficult background, and from our kind of lens also lost a parent, that's what you need, you know, like losing a parent, losing a guardian or someone who is a...
Lose consistency.
Yeah, you need consistency, and you need structure, and you need, you know, kind of guidance and advice. And not that everyone's parents, you know, can give them the best career advice, but it's someone to bounce things off. It's someone to kind of say, okay, let's like explore this, let's look at what you're good at and everything. And I think that the fact that like people who kind of come in to say the foundation, like there is a path where they can actually end up working with you for quite a long time, and then kind of they can be like birds set free into the world and go off and do whatever they want to do. But I think that for young people who have lost a parent on top of coming from a disadvantaged background is something that is so necessary, and I'm sure such an important factor of everything that you guys deliver.
Exactly right. I mean, the only thing I'll add or caveat is that, like, the foundation absolutely does not exist to be a long-term source of anything for the company. Like, from a financial and monetary perspective, it's a one-way relationship that the company like entirely funds the foundation, to the point where we turn down offers of funding. It sounds really silly, but if you're a little bit like, if you're like dating and you're and if I'm not, I've got a girlfriend who lives with me, but if hypothetically I was dating and I invited someone to come to my house for dinner, it's like asking them to bring the chicken. You know, it's kind of like, we want this to be a bit like our legacy and what we can do to make the world a better place. So yeah, that is a potential kind of additional layer to what we can do further down the line. But as it exists, the company exists to provide services to people looking for jobs, and to provide you know, kind of world-class advice and talent support to businesses across the UK, Europe, the US, Asia, and so on. And the foundation exists to, you know, have a tangible impact on social mobility in the UK. The two don't need to connect their services to achieve either aim, if that makes sense. It's a long-term enhancement rather than part of the plan.
But the work that the company does, helping organizations to reimagine how they attract and select and assess talent, is a really key part of also changing things on a wider level. Because as a social mobility charity, you know, if we're kind of helping and you know, bringing up loads of amazing high potential young people who come from low income backgrounds, but companies aren't changing the way that they assess, attract, and then manage them, then there's always going to still be a barrier. And so I see that as a really key part of the kind of interaction, where again, it's that top-down, like, organizational change from the company side, and it's that bottom-up kind of grassroots support from the foundation.
Also expertise, right? You know, it's something, honestly, that we didn't used to talk about. I used to want to make sure that people felt really reassured about the separation between the organization, because, you know, while we're doing this just honestly because we're good people and it matters, like, there is so much like crap out there, which is CSR and all that is just PR and things, which is why we're so clear about what we do and how it works. It's why we're so clear that we don't make any money from it or get anything out of it. And I used to describe it as a funding only relationship. And Leah was actually like, that's not correct. Like, it's not correct, nor actually is it good. Like, one of the things that makes our foundation unique is we're not charity people trying to help people with job advice. Like, we're like world-class experts in getting young people jobs, building infrastructure to enable them to get jobs. So, you know, who better to, you know, sort of strategically guide a charity around youth employment than a company that literally specializes in delivering that as a service?
Yeah, really.
100%. Sorry, Leah. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like we've definitely danced around. It's probably worth actually just saying what we do.
That's the next question.
Leads on to the third question, which is, you're obviously doing amazing work. So what are these amazing initiatives that you do?
Yes, well, so at the foundation side, we very consciously designed our services or our initiatives, whatever you want to call them, to kind of fit gaps within young people's knowledge, lives, whatever it may be, because of the background they may come from. And they kind of almost have like a waterfall effect, like they flow from one to the next.
Nice analogy.
That's such a nice analogy.
A lot of like self-congratulating in this.
We've got a bit of an echo chamber going on, haven't we? We're going to think the whole world loves that analogy when we come out. It's like when he posts on Facebook about something.
I know. But with the hope that they kind of flow from one to the next at the point that thing is necessary. So, you know, the very beginning of the life cycle and our foundation is around the gap of knowledge. Like, how can you aspire to an amazing job if you don't know what jobs are out there? I think it was one of our trustees who said, like, children's imaginations are limited to what they've experienced. You know, we think imagination is this thing that you can imagine anything, but actually you can't imagine something unless you've seen it or touched it or heard it.
And there's like an overlay of logic that gets more and more prevalent. So little kids want to be astronauts and then firefighters and so on. And then if they're not exposed to all the things they could do for a while, they become teenagers and so on, they end up like, I want to be a cleaner or a hairdresser or in childcare. There's nothing wrong, of course, with any of those jobs, as long as they're the product of an informed choice, when they also know they could be a lawyer or a banker or a software engineer or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So Future Hub is like our first initiative, and it's basically providing knowledge and understanding in the commercial world and different types of professions. So it's a mobile app. It's currently like fully functioning and designed. It's going to be launching next year, and that will be like our early intervention. It will be available for young people kind of from like 11 plus as they join.
That's so good. Yeah,
it's going to be so good. Do either of you play video games? I'm going to explain some of the. Do you say yes?
I do. Yeah.
Have you ever played? This is very niche, but have you ever played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order on the PSP?
I have played Star Wars on the PSP a few times, but I don't know if it's that.
I don't remember that. I used to love the PSP. Yeah, that Star Wars Battlefront 2. Yeah, that game slapped. But it wasn't that. It was there's a game, and I played it. This is unnecessary context, but got pneumonia and I was really ill for 2 weeks while this game was out. So I just literally played this game solid for 2 weeks while I was ill. And there was a skill tree in it, which is a really common thing in video games. So you learn a skill and then it can branch off to more specific or more in-depth skills. And it was really well done in this. And that kind of provided a bit of the inspiration. So like when I first thought of the charity, I modeled, this was the first thing I thought of doing, was like building an interactive sort of learning program. And yeah, the thing that I'm excited about is people will be able to like interactively explore a bit like that skill tree. So you could do like Intro to Financial Services by HSBC, and then What is Investment Banking by JP Morgan, M&A by Deutsche Bank, and Rates by Goldman Sachs, and so on.
Cool. It's very exciting. It also looks so cool. Like it looks just how we'd hoped it would. So that, as I said, will kind of be rolled out to our education partners, so schools that we work with around the UK. But then with the hope of like
kids more generally, right?
And then opening it up to like, you know, an app that any young person can use and download.
The goal is to make it like the Duolingo of careers, like that kind of style and feeling.
Yeah. So that's the first one, that kind of gap around knowledge, and it leads on to our second initiative, which is our mentoring program. Because if you have the knowledge, you also have the aspiration. You maybe found out something that you really lights your fire and makes you want to work hard, or you know, you want to become a doctor, whatever it may be.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
You do.
I do, yeah, sorry. Yeah. On that's also a really key part. Like part of it is knowledge, but knowledge can also lead to a spark. When I was 16, I wanted to be an intellectual property lawyer. I have no idea why, specifically in the pharmaceutical industry. That was literally my stated goal. It was in my UCAS application. I don't know why I wanted to do that. I didn't end up doing that, but because I wanted to do it and believed I could, I worked really hard and got straight A's the whole way through school. So it's partly about like helping kids. Kids don't need to know what they want to do at 15. They need to know there's stuff out there that they can do, that they're excited by.
Track for it.
But so when they reach sixth form, so years 12 and 13, or it might be their first couple of years of their level 3, they can apply to join our mentoring program. Because if you've got that knowledge, you've got that spark, but you don't have the same access to networks or people who can support you and guide you in terms of how to successfully enter these different fields, then there's still a huge hurdle. And that's exactly what our mentoring program is set up to provide. So we work with some really, really cool corporate partners all around the UK, big, small, well-known, never heard of, but basically...
Not naming any names, the last lot.
No. But with those corporate partners, their employees can volunteer their time to mentor. And so we match them up with kids who attend our school partners, and they go on a mentoring journey where they meet virtually once a month for an hour up to 90 minutes and go through our like pre-designed career readiness program. So each month they work on something together. It could be something quite soft skills based, like self-confidence, all the way to stuff that's
LinkedIn pages,
stuff like building your LinkedIn page, or you know, doing interview practice, the more kind of tangible tasks that you need to be able to do. So that's a 2-year program.
And we manage all the trainings worth adding as well. So the corporate partners, so take British Airways. British Airways are a particularly great partner of ours because they're getting really, really involved, and people, they're great. They're definitely one of our most engaged partners. So BA are going to be creating content around the aviation or airlines industry. They'll fill that, and then, and alongside a lot of their people, like everyone from like pilots and like marketing staff and all that are getting in touch to mentor. We then train and guide and support them, do all the safeguarding and the referencing and the indemnity stuff and all of that. And they mentor kind of through us.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thanks. It's really cool. You know, we've got a female pilot, and she's like, I literally felt like I was meeting a celebrity. She was like,
she was on Zoom. She's like, this person's amazing. This person.
That's really good.
So yeah, it's a 2-year program for the young people, and kind of positioned at that really scary transitional point in your life where you're in your final couple of years of school and everyone's asking you what's next. And it could be higher education. It also might be something different, like an apprenticeship or an entry-level role. So the mentoring program is our kind of like high touch, more traditional like volunteering opportunity, but it also then leads on to our final initiative, which is the Early Careers Fund, because you could have all of the knowledge, all of the guidance, you might have even found your next opportunity, be it higher education or not, and still have a financial hurdle in order to achieve and taking
my mate Jamie did. He ended up going to London Met because he had to stay home and look after his family. He had an offer from, I can't remember, it was like Liverpool or something, like an offer from a good red brick university, and just couldn't take it. He didn't get the London unis he wanted, and so went there, you know, and that obviously materially affects your life outcomes. Not that it's a bad thing to go to London Met, but, you know, compared to what expectations he had for his own educational experience, it was difficult. So there's a load of people out there, incredibly, the idea is this is for the most kind of economically challenged, is that a word? I don't know. Those with the least resources and the highest potential. But you get a lot of people, I mean, again, perfect example is one where they've lost a parent. They might be caring for a single parent, and they might be, you know, a carer for a grandparent in a single parent family. And it means they cannot move away, and certainly can't move away and work, and, you know.
Yeah. And so
just to go off on that financial aspect, when, you know, if you have lost a parent, you know, your whole financial situation can change just like that. So, you know, it might be that you were in a fairly stable situation beforehand, and then the person who was, you know, the breadwinner has passed away, and suddenly everything changes. And so,
you know, that's
like I said with my dad, that's what happened to him. His dad passed away. He was a coal miner. His dad passed away, and my dad had to drop education like that and drop all his plans and dreams and what he wanted to do and go and decorate houses to look after his 3 little sisters.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're losing 50% of your household income, right? Especially if you've got 2 girls, there are still in a happy
more, right? Of course, because you might have
naturally.
Your father works, mother doesn't, for example.
That was my mum and dad's situation. My father was a breadwinner. My mum worked for my dad. So, you know, as soon as my dad passed, it was like, whoa, slap in the face, you know, financially. But, you know, he'd set things up in a way that, you know, we were able to be reasonably stable. But in 90% of the cases that we deal with at its time and people we speak with, that's not the case. So it's very relatable. It's interesting. There's that part of what you're doing is awesome.
Yeah.
It's all awesome. But that part I really like.
Yeah, it's really important. I think, you know, you have to kind of, hate the phrase, but put your money where your mouth is. And you know, if it's not sustainable and as a charity in terms of our services unless we have that financial element. So it is really like the perfect final culmination of the lifespan of the foundation, so that we can support those. It's a means tested grant, as Dan said, so supporting those with the least resources so that they can go on to their next step, and helping them to do that, basically. So it's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. And honestly, just I could listen to you guys talk about everything that you do for ages, because I just think
come over it, do it.
Because it is just such a brilliant, amazing, you know, kind of organisation that you've got, both the foundation and the company. But I guess the final little bit could be, actually, David, this is your question. I'm taking over. Go on, David, ask the final question.
Is it mine?
I think. Was it mine?
Oh, is it? I'll go for it. So, Daniel, for our beneficiaries who are perhaps slightly older, say, you know, 18 to 30 years old, what available support is out there in terms of mentoring advice, gaining work experience? Now, you know, I know it's a bit of a general question, but perhaps just advice you two could give. You know, both have impressive careers in, you know, different fields, but now similar fields as well. So for most of our beneficiaries, which we're 16 to 30, but I'd say our core is about 18 to 28, but 18 to 30. What kind of advice would you both have for that demographic? About support out there for mentoring, gaining work experience.
Yeah. In terms of like from a charity perspective, there are quite a lot of organizations out there doing stuff a bit like what we're doing, helping young people gain exposure and skills. There is one mentoring program I'm aware of specifically for that age bracket, where you can gain a mentor. However, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I will tell you.
We'll let you know, and you can maybe add it
on the system.
Yeah, we'll share.
Yeah. It's actually generally more one of the reasons, like, it's much easier because obviously there are loads of issues when you work with children. It's much more like, it was far more complicated for us to set up a charity working with often quite vulnerable under 18s, legally children. And there's loads of challenges around child protection, safeguarding, which don't exist the second they turn 18, or for the most part don't exist. So it's actually much simpler. And so there are quite a lot of good offerings out there for, young adults.
100%. But I think in terms of, especially for like the people who'd be listening to this and the demographic, just based on experience I've seen with my friends who have lost a parent, the first thing is, if you can, and I know sometimes this won't apply based on what we were just saying with financial situations, but just like cut yourself a little bit of slack and give yourself a bit of time to figure it out when you've had that sort of traumatic experience and losing a support and a caregiver. Understand that is going to have ramifications, and give yourself some time. My best friend lost her dad when we were in our third year of uni, and she's only really kind of found her footing in terms of her career now when we're about 26, 27. She was working up until then, but she didn't have that like career path right from the offset coming out of uni, because she was still kind of coming to terms with things and figuring it out. So I know that's quite a privileged stance, because not everyone can do that, but if you can, just have a bit of time.
Just to add to that, I've asked you the question, but I think it might be helpful to add. I actually found a lot of kind of solitude and kind of growth actually in my career. I've worked in
what I was going to talk about.
Yeah, I've worked in the career space recruitment for 7 or 8 years now, and that became a big part of my life. It is a career that some will say it can be quite draining. It's up and down. It's a bit of a roller coaster, champagne and razor blades they call it. But I spent a lot of my 20s focused on my career, and that actually helped me a great deal in dealing with the loss of my father. He was a career man as well, so it was not just me making him proud, and I was fortunate enough and privileged, as you say, to kind of have that mindset of growth and doing well for myself in life. But I found that a lot of solitude and growth in focusing in my career, and healing through that. And I think a lot of people who go through such loss, or in your situations, have come from less privileged backgrounds, whatever. They kind of see the career thing as a big scary thing, right? But actually, educate people to find themselves through their career. I think that plays a pivotal part in it, especially for myself.
This is exactly what I was going to say, and not because I completely agree with everything you said. And I think the key point is, do what feels right. Yeah. I'll be honest, I need to phrase this in quite a careful way, but I've been thinking about how to do it. There is a change in the narrative of the importance of careers at the moment. There's a lot of this like work-life balance is more important than your job. Everything's more important than your job. Don't worry about work. Why should you work so hard? Why should you work in the evenings? Don't work at weekends. Balance, balance, balance. Which is fine, except that a career is not a one-way thing. You get a lot out of it yourself. My biggest career advice to anyone, honestly, is like, shut up and get on with it. Just like, careers are not built with grand plans, and they're not built with loads of time sitting drinking Prosecco at brunch talking about your side hustle. Careers are built by turning up every day and working like fuck to make something of yourself. Sorry, I said it wasn't.
I feel like we're having a Kim Kardashian little moment there, where she was like...
funny enough, I wouldn't know what that meant, but I was subjected to 2 hours of the Kardashians last night for the first time in my life with my girlfriend. And I was like, you know what? I actually quite like Kourtney and Kylie.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was like, this is not that bad. I'm now completely addicted.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's about like turning up and working hard. You know, like I don't think I've done anything particularly amazing or incredible. I've just taken the opportunities ahead of me, but I do everything I do as well as I possibly can. I work myself into the ground at times, you know, but I'm doing it because I know that it'll get me somewhere. I didn't know where, I didn't know why, but I just knew that if you're doing something, do it really well. And that's not to say after losing a parent, like that's of course a hugely traumatic and challenging experience. But I think, you know, solace, but also like distraction, like throw yourself into your work. Like I haven't ever had any trauma or attachment issues or anything like that, and so I can't give any lived personal experience, and I certainly wouldn't want to, you know, imply that I can guess what that feels like, because, you know, I know that if I went through that experience I would massively struggle. But yeah, I think focusing as much on
No, I was just going to say, I think which is why, you know, it's important to have different conversations, is that, and it's important to always remember different people respond to things completely differently. And I think, like, you know, there's always so many different factors that can impact why one person has just got something in them that just pushes them, you know, whatever that is. It could be something that's genetic, it might have been how they were brought up, or things that they've gone through that has given them the resilience, but someone else might have gone through it.
Challenges, right? That's something people learn by overcoming traumatic experiences. They develop this like fire inside.
Something that's probably similar, you know, for the young people that we work with at the foundation, for young people I've worked with across my career, like they know they're from a low income background. They know that they don't need being told. Same as the young people you work with who've lost a parent, like they know it's shit. They know they've lost a parent, and that sucks. And so actually, sometimes with these sorts of things, it's like you don't need to patronize them. You don't need to, you know, coddle them, but you need to give them the tools and the resources
and the belief, right? So they believe this has happened to me and it's hard, or this is how I was brought up and it's difficult. Take the losing a parent example. This has happened, it's difficult and I'm struggling with it, but I can still definitely make something of myself. And I think maybe the narrative around it needs to change. I think it's very important to discuss these issues, but I don't think any issues are helpful to discuss the whole time. I think, you know, part of my view with people from the, you know, the low income backgrounds that we support and work with, you know, I'm giving a talk at my old school in a few weeks, and I plan on saying, like, you know, honestly, not to be rude, don't really give a shit about your background. That's not what I'm here to talk about. You know, I'm sure you'll have parents and social workers and, you know, friends and family and all that talking about these issues and challenges at home and the issues you face. I'm here to talk about what you can do and how you can succeed and make it and overcome the challenges. I think a healthy dose of like, you can do it, crack on.
I agree.
I think that's what is so important with what you guys offer, particularly with your mentoring program, is to have, particularly within the context of its time, and if you've lost a parent, that's one person who, and that's not to say that the, you know, parent that you've lost was overly supportive. You can lose a parent that had an awful relationship with them, but if we're saying a general rule of thumb, you've lost a parent who was relatively supportive and, you know, and everything, then you've lost someone who's in your corner, who's saying you can do it, you know, all of that. And I completely agree. I think self-belief can go such a long way. And so, like, with like your mentoring program, you know, something where it's someone who they can meet with monthly, who has got all this experience and, you know, can kind of guide them, like even that will just go such a long way.
It does.
Yeah.
You know, I mentor a young guy who's been through so much. Like, it's scary, the stuff he's been through. But I know that just speaking to him, like, he says to me all the time, I appreciate you so much, David. Like, and it is just giving that belief and just taking a step back to what we're talking about. Me and Libby actually wrote a blog recently on post-traumatic growth, which is the complete opposite of post-traumatic stress, right? My belief is that we live in a society where all we ever speak about is post-traumatic stress, right? And, you know,
we only ever talk about how you shouldn't work hard, and now the narrative is how it's you know, you shouldn't work hard, it's not your fault, don't worry. We don't talk enough. We don't, like, I feel society and the narrative around stress and loss and everything is not enabling, you know. It needs to be more.
And unfortunately though, Dan, it's a $1 billion market, right? And now post-traumatic growth, you know, which is the element for me, it was like, I don't think I'm ever going to experience anything as bad as what I've been through. You know, I lost my father to medical negligence. He should still be here. So that, like, it was dreadful. And like, I look at my life and I'm like, I take risks now with everything, especially in business, because I'm like, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. I'm never going to feel how I felt 9 years ago. And that, you know, and I guess it's relatable to you guys, like looking at someone's situation and, you know, in a polite way saying, you're in a bad space right now, you know, anything you try and do is, you know, is probably going to work, because you have you'll have the confidence, and once you've given them the tools and the belief to make something work, and it's probably never going to be as bad as the situation you've been in. And I think that is a narrative that needs to change, that like growth from a bad situation, whether it's traumatic or whether it's just kind of a socioeconomic or whatever issue, you know, let's take forward of that. And I think that's wicked what you guys are doing.
I like that. I like that post-traumatic growth. I'm gonna not steal. But
we've got a blog.
I did
read our blog on It's Time on the page on the website. Libby, we'll send it to them so they can have a read.
Yeah, I did my whole dissertation on it. So I did my dissertation on post-traumatic growth in young people who have lost a parent, and I interviewed 5 people.
Also a great read, really good.
Yeah, it's about 10,000 words. So if you've got time, but
a quick reader.
Yeah, but no, it's very interesting, and yeah, I think it's, you know, it's about getting the balance between giving space for, like, you know, your mental health when you go through something, or if you're from a lower income back, you know, it is awful. It can be, you know, for some people it can be the end of everything. Do you know what I mean? It's very important to not be like, oh, like, you know, you'll be fine, like just keep pushing through. It's about the balance of giving space to both truths existing. But I also know that I would have loved having someone saying, you've got this, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you have got this. And like, when it's all kind of very all consuming, when you've lost a parent, you know, sometimes you want a bit of hope. You want someone to say,
it's shit, but it's not necessarily like ruinous, you know?
So based on like research looking at mentor-mentee relationships, the most valued thing for mentees is encouragement across the board. So I always, when I'm training our mentors, I say to them, you know, ideally, yes, you'll stick to the curriculum, you'll help them develop their skills, and you'll kind of go through the different themes month to month. But if at, you know, baseline, you're just there once a month, being a cheerleader and in their corner, and you don't even go through the different themes and topics, then that's still a win.
Still a big value add.
And it's still a huge value add. Yeah, I feel like that wasn't very tangible career advice, but
no, it was good. I think I think it's
there is one more thing before I jump off. You can also get in touch with us, right? As a company, we're either we will either directly be able to help you, or just give you some good advice, or indirectly help you. You know, we'll always do what we can. People, you know, the Early Careers Company, get in touch. You can email hello@earlycareerscompany.com. My email's dan@earlycareerscompany.com. If anyone wants to speak to me directly, I'd avoid it unless you've got several hours free.
Amen.
But
same with the foundation. You know, if you're within our age bracket, if you've got siblings who are within our age bracket, of course they can use and, you know, hopefully work with us. But if you're not, then we're also still
David's got a younger
here
brother,
to help.
Yeah. What's the age bracket so everyone knows?
Yeah, that's what I was just
The mentoring program is generally 16 to 19, so while you're in sixth form.
Yeah, cool.
The app will be available for 11 plus, and the company, I mean, we were just, to be honest with you, we're also just like nice people who clearly care about this. So on a one-by-one basis, like, I'm happy to talk to people and give them
amazing.
You know, watch this, can't help 1,000 people, you know.
I'll get the name of that other mentoring program that you were mentioning, Leah, that you couldn't remember the name of, and we can add that in the comments and everything. And in the intro, we'll have both your pictures with your emails and all the website links, everything. So everything will be included. But honestly, thank you so much for agreeing to chat today. And honestly, I'm so glad we connected, Leah, and we were able to kind of, you know, begin to slowly build a bit of a relationship and everything, because I genuinely love what you guys do so much.
Me too. You should seriously do one of these with my dad. He's a great talker.
I was gonna say
money, and he built an incredible career as a very senior guy in the oil industry, having lost his dad at 18, with 4 younger sisters ranging from 3 to 16. So I think it'd be really good, and did it a long time ago. It's a different perspective.
We've got a very David, you
I was just going to say, Libby, it could be great for one of the series we do just on loss. We're looking to speak to older people.
I'll talk. I'm seeing him tonight for dinner, so I'll chat to him. Yeah. Could you want to ping this generic information?
Yeah.
Should we stop recording?
Should we say thank you? But bye.
Wait, yeah, let's. Thank you so much. It's been amazing chatting, and yeah, thank you.
Take care.
You're welcome.